this week's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast, I show you how to make more time so that you can get out, practice, and shoot more. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast with Raymond Hatfield, the podcast dedicated to helping you grow your photography skills. Raymond interviews the world's top photographers in their field to ask questions that will get you taking better photos today. Now, with you as always, husband, father, home brewer, LA Dodger fan, and Indianapolis wedding photographer, Raymond Hatfield.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. As always, I am Raymond, your host and wedding photographer here in Indianapolis, and I'm also a father. As you heard all of these things in the intro, it has been a kind of a crazy week for the Hatfield household. Several things, just like it's mostly just like a lot of annoyances that have been happening, which have made it hard sometimes to focus and get done what I wanted to get done. So this week, my daughter she's 3. She was playing in my office here, and I use a Canon 70D for video stuff because it has fantastic autofocus for video. So she was here in my office, and she was playing with the camera behind me and dropped it, and the microphone port now no longer works, which is fine as a as a photography camera. If you're just taking pictures with the camera, it works just fine. It works fantastic. But since I use it for video, I need that microphone port, and now it is dead to me. So that was an annoyance. So I had to get ready to sell it, as well as buy a new camera. So I had to splurge, which I really wasn't looking forward to or anticipating, on a new Fuji X-T3. Now, I shoot Fuji. If you've been listening for a while, you know that I shoot Fuji, and the X-T3 is one step up. It's their newest camera, so I went ahead and picked that up, and I got to take it to an engagement session this last weekend in Michigan, and it worked well. It's funny though. Every time you go to get a new camera, you get excited for the possibilities, right? Everything that you'll now be able to do that you weren't able to do before. And you feel like it's just going to completely transform your shooting experience. But in reality, it really doesn't. Everybody talks about the autofocus performance on the X-T3 compared to the X Pro 2, which is what I have, and how much faster it is. And was it faster? I don't know, maybe I'm just not in situations where I need like lightning fast autofocus. I'm usually just taking portraits of people who are standing still in front of my camera. So autofocus, while important, definitely on a wedding day, and I see its importance, maybe I just didn't really get a real feel for how it works in this new camera to the best of its abilities. So, but it was good. I mean, the engagement session turned out fine, and it was beautiful. It was a sunset engagement session on a pier on the west side of Michigan. So we got the sun going down over the water, which was absolutely beautiful. So there was that. Our oldest son brought home lice from school, so I contemplated just shaving off all my hair off my head, because I don't want to deal with that. My wife starts a new job. She just started a new job this week, and on top of that, I've been really excited to get out some. I've had some new ideas for content. Some really awesome content for you all as listeners, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, but I'm really excited to share. But I found that very recently I've been falling just completely head over heels in love for film, like never before, honestly. So I've been shooting film for several years. I mean, not like religiously, right? I don't shoot a roll a week or anything like that, but I probably shoot like 5 rolls of film a year. So not a ton, but definitely enough to understand how film works. But in the past few months, there's just been something that was just, ignited within me. And now it's all that I can think about. It's all that I want to do. So I got a new film camera. I bought a new medium format film camera. I bought 30 rolls of film. Now I need, the equipment to actually develop my film. But I've actually challenged myself because all the supplies to develop your own film are probably, it's the initial cost that's always, the most expensive, but it's probably going to cost about $250 to get started. But I've challenged myself that I will not buy all the equipment needed to develop film unless I can earn the money extra through my photography business. So with me being able to think about film nonstop, I actually haven't had much time to shoot any film recently. So it's just one of those things. But, as I was going through it, all of this with the cameras and the lice and, my wife starting a new job and trying to book some more sessions for the business, I've been thinking a lot about that struggle of time. And we always are wishing that we had more time, but when you think about it, it's just simply not possible. And when you think about it even more, we have the exact same amount of time and the same hours in a day as, Jeff Bezos or Beyonce. And these people can achieve amazing things in their life. So I've been trying to kind of figure out how to better control time and maximize time, the time that we do have, to make it work better for us. And I get, the struggles of feeling like you can't practice, of having a lot on your plate. I mean, honestly, if you got to be there for your family and you're busy at work, I get it. I'm right there with you. And these feelings can lead to feelings of guilt that, you have this nice camera, but you don't know how to use it, or lead to feelings of resentment towards other photographers whose photos you love because you're not there yet. But right now, I want you to ask yourself just one question, and that is photography important to you? See, I think that if something is truly important to you, then there has to be some level of sacrifice to getting where you want to be. But this episode isn't just about, cutting everything out of your life just so that you can take some pretty photos. There's going to be some real actionable information here that you will be able to use and hopefully regain some time. But the first thing that we need to fundamentally understand is that, the way that we're going about it right now is just wishing that we had a spare, 4 hours, like a block of 4 hours to just go out and practice everything that you want to practice. And that's what is just simply near impossible, especially with a full-time job and a family, and these other responsibilities that you have. But so this is the core fundamental thing that we need to realize, is that we simply do waste time, and we have time gaps throughout the day. These time gaps are, your lunch break, waiting for an appointment, while dinner's cooking, in the train or on the train, or in an Uber, right? We might have 5 10-minute gaps throughout the day. And these may seem like small, you sit down like, oh, can you wait for 10 minutes? Okay, yeah. So then you just sit down and you wait. And then what ends up happening is that we just, scroll through Facebook or whatever. So these 10-minute blocks, it's just because they feel small. But over the course of a year, they total up to more than 48 hours. So there's a lot of room there. And these are the things that I'm trying to really expand upon. using these short chunks of time to better utilize, or better learn and better utilize my time, essentially, than that, But I want you to know this one thing about photography. So I'm sure that, you're feeling like, oh, what is Raymond going to cut out? Now we got to be diligent. This is going to be a lot of work. But I want you to know this one thing about photography. And photography is very, very, very much like, riding a bike. Once you gain a certain level of proficiency, it becomes almost effortless to maintain that knowledge. Once you learn how to ride a bike and, hold yourself up, then, 10 years from now, you can do it again because you understand the mechanics. Maybe you can't go, get in the Tour de France, but you have a level of competency that lets you go out and leisurely ride a bike. And it's the same thing with photography. It's that initial time that you put in that is going to take up the majority of the free time that you do have. So while you may listen to this and think, I can't do all of these things, like I said earlier, if something is important to you, there really has to be at least some level of sacrifice. And the thing with photography is it'll be temporary, because you just need to get to that level of competency before you can maintain your knowledge. So do these things until you feel comfortable behind the camera. Like, you have to grasp it. And you may be asking yourself, how will you know if you have grasped it? How will you know if you are comfortable behind the camera? And the honest answer is you just will. And I can only, equate this to like driving a car. And at first, you're nervous because you're behind the wheel of this, 4,000-pound speeding death trap. But, you find yourself a year later where a driver in front of you slams on the brakes a bit too hard and you have to swerve and get out of the way. But then you realize after the fact that you actually checked your mirrors before swerving. And then you just know that you got it at that point. At some point, you have that level of competency and you've now practiced it enough to where you got it. But there isn't a definitive moment. You will find yourself in situations that you previously thought that were difficult, but now you can clearly think your way through it. Now, it may take 2 months for someone else, and it could take 2 years for you. And it is impossible to give you that timeline simply because of outside factors that will determine how hard you are able to pursue photography. Now, photography is broken up into several different segments, right? There's hobbyists, there's amateurs, and there are professionals. Now, hobbyists and people who want to remain hobbyists can be more relaxed with their time. They are doing this out purely for leisure. And therefore, you may still be excited about something and you may want to really learn it, but you don't have to be as diligent with your time as somebody who, say, wants to start a business one day and actually make money with their camera. So before we, get too deep into this kind of philosophical stuff, let's just go ahead and get on into the more step-by-step process. So I've kind of broken it down into 7 different steps to regain more time throughout your life. So step number 1 is just to simply get set up for this. And by get set up, I mean don't get lost in YouTube. That is the first place where a lot of people go to learn photography, because generally photographers are very visual learners, and so YouTube is it just makes sense. And when you go, you can easily get lost. And I have found as of later than it should have been, but as of the past few months, instead of going to YouTube and instead investing in some sort of course or program that tackles a very specific need that I have, I am able to learn that thing much quicker and much more efficiently. I don't feel as lost, right? So I would recommend getting the Creative Live or just signing up for Creative Live because Creative Live is just a fantastic place to start because, for one, they have a huge range of different tutorials, different courses that can help you from everything from Photoshop 101 to, how to create a business and thrive. And what's better is that they have an app, and that app on your phone can be used to replace, whatever other social media you're using, and now you can fill those time gaps with some education. Now, if generally these courses do cost money, but within the app you can actually watch one lesson free every single day. So again, if you're focusing on one thing, say, if you're focusing on, this is more of an advanced topic, but like composites, like composite photography in Photoshop, now every time you have a time gap, at least once a day, you can go through and watch a lesson absolutely for free. So that is going to be a much better use of your time than, just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook. And I do this all the time. So I still definitely have this problem, and I need to get better on working on these things as well. But one of my favorite apps as of recently to learn is actually been through the Google app. So Google has a dedicated app, and I remember when it first launched, I thought, well, what's the point? It's just going to be a search bar. That makes no sense. Why not just use Safari or Chrome or whatever browser's built into your phone? But I downloaded the Google app and found very quickly that it's so much more than that. You almost have like your own feed of news and blog articles based on the things that you're searching for. So if you are searching for photography tutorials, if you are searching for how back button focus works, if you're searching for how different apertures affect your photo, Google's going to understand that you are interested in photography and that you're trying to learn more about photography, and will then there start showing you more articles related to photography. And I can tell you that I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know about photography through just kind of stumbling upon these reads. So it's a fantastic source just to be able to more passively find information, because these short blogs or articles perfectly fit in these 5-10 minute time gaps. So there's number one. Okay, number two is to stop doing something else. So stop doing something else, right? At the end of the day, if you feel like, oh, I just didn't have enough time today, I wish that I could have got more done, then your time is filled with things, and that is where you can obviously, the desire to have more time comes from. But if we actually take an objective look at the amount of time that we have spent throughout the day, some of it, I would say the majority of the time that can be regained is simply through binge watching and mindlessly scrolling. These are definitely the two biggest ones, and I don't mean to say this to be accusatory, because I'm super guilty of this. I am. And I've just realized that these are the two areas of my life to where if I just cut out TV, I could probably save 2 hours a day. 1 hour for Big Brother, and then another hour for Dodger games. Because they start so late. Otherwise, if Dodger games started earlier in the day, then I'd be watching TV for 4 hours a day, that's for sure. But I got to get some sleep at some point. So I want to give you a fun little exercise. My wife doesn't think it was a fun exercise, but I think it's a fun exercise. If you have an iPhone, you can go into your settings and you can search for your screen time. So screen time tells you how long your screen has been on during the day, and it'll also give you a breakdown of what apps are most used. And I'm willing to bet that you are on your phone for more than 3 hours a day. Now, sure, a phone can be a productive tool, right? I get that. With phone calls, important emails, but surely not every moment is spent diligently making progress on something. And I'm going to share with you my screen time right now. So, well, my screen time is a little skewed because I had to use GPS in my car when I was going up to Michigan, and that was a 3.5 hour drive. So it says that my daily screen time on average is 2 hours and 50 minutes per day. Ugh. So it says that in the past 7 days, I have spent 4.5 hours on Facebook, obviously 3.5 hours using maps. I spent 2 hours in the Audible app, 2 hours using my Google app, an hour and a half using text messages, 55 minutes on YouTube, and then 40 minutes listening to podcasts. It would be a lot more on that podcast app, but I found it really good. I started listening to Pat Flynn's newest book in Audible on the way up to Michigan. So anyway, as you can see right there, I spent 4.5 hours on Facebook just in the last 7 days alone. Right there, even if I cut that in half, that's an extra, more than 2 hours throughout the week. So I think just being aware of where your time is going has really helped me kind of be more, be more aware when I'm actually like on Facebook. So if you are like me, maybe on your lunch break, instead of just scrolling through Facebook, using that time to either listen to other podcasts about photography, watch your free lesson on Creative Live, or read those photography blogs in the Google app. Those are things that have helped me. But once you have to stop doing something to be able to replace that time with something else that you do want to do. All right, number 3 is don't overwhelm yourself. Pick one thing and then stick to it. When you're brand new to photography, you have one goal, and that is to learn photography. But learn photography is not a goal. It's just too broad, and you can't learn everything about photography. Learn photography might be a lifetime goal because it can never be achievable. But learn photography is not a good short-term goal for beginners. Something like learn how to use aperture, or learn how to, get out of focus backgrounds. That is a goal. That is a goal. So pick one and stick with it. So this typically leads, and this is what I love about photography, is that once you learn one thing, it typically leads to other things and the next obsession as well. So sticking to one thing is really going to help you stay focused and not, what good is, saving 2 hours a week by not being on Facebook and then just feeling like you've wasted it because you haven't learned anything extra because you're just trying to learn everything. Once you stop overwhelming yourself, narrow down to just one thing, and then focus on it, you're going to feel a lot better about learning photography. So remember how I mentioned that new content that I have in the beginning, in the intro there? Well, I want to share that with you now. If you are brand new, I have a brand new free ebook that you can actually download called Picture Perfect Camera Settings. So Picture Perfect Camera Settings is, again, a free ebook that walks you through just how to get started with your camera settings in any situation. So from photographing your kids to shooting a wedding, I actually share photos in the ebook and the settings that I used, and share recommended starting points with those examples, so that you can get set up and then make adjustments as needed. And the ebook is, again, it's completely free, and if you're interested in it, you can download it just by heading over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and then heading over to the resource tab at the top of the page. So here we are at number 4, and number 4 is just simply pre-plan. Pre-plan meaning that you have now gone through and you have audited your time and you have found spaces where you can either utilized those time gaps, or you've cut down in other areas to be able to have more time for you to use on photography, right? So you're learning as much as you can and you focused on one thing. You didn't overwhelm yourself. You are focusing on how to get out of focus backgrounds, right? But now the time has come to actually go out, and shoot. And this is where pre-plan comes in. Because after learning, you should really make yourself an action plan of what it is that you need to do to really feel like you understand and that you grasp that concept, right? And you can read every blog post, watch every YouTube video, but if you don't actually get out and spend time behind the camera, you're not really going to be that successful. It's not really going to help as much as it would I got off topic there by simply just going out and doing that thing. So figuring out what it is that you need in order to be proficient in whatever it is that you're trying to learn. So, ask yourself, do you need a morning sunrise? Do you need someone just to be in front of your camera? Do you need a fast moving object? These are the things that you should figure out now, so that when you do take the time to actually go out and shoot and be behind the camera, then you are going to be ready to snag the shot and just be set up for it. I've found that me as a photographer, it's very hard for me to just go out and just like leisurely shoot. I can't just go out and say, oh, that's a nice thing, and then take a photo of it. I really have to have some sort of game plan in my head to be able to capture photos that I will be, happy with. So pre-planning for me has been one of the biggest ones for sure. Now, number 5 is to give yourself a time limit. There is a lot to learn, with photography. You could listen to, every podcast nonstop. You could watch educational courses. You could watch YouTube videos. You could read blog posts all day long and still feel like you haven't got anything done. Now, if you take the hour before bed where you're usually watching the news, which somehow feels important but actually never leaves you feeling good or inspired or like you took anything away from it, and then you use that time instead to educate yourself, when the hour is up, just stop. The key here is to obviously you're focused on one thing, how to get out of focus backgrounds. You've now spent an hour watching videos on how to get out of focus backgrounds. Now stop. And then really take that time to reflect on that information that you have learned. Let it ferment. It's a homebrewer reference right there. Speaking of which, I gotta get out and brew. Anyway, that hour that you spend learning that one topic can be so much more powerful than 3 hours of just trying to consume it all. And I think the reason why we spend 3 hours trying to consume it all is because we always feel like there's one tip, one trick, one little hack that we are, that we're missing. And that if we just watch one more video, we're gonna finally get it. We're gonna finally understand it. But that's not how this works. I mean, maybe for some things, but for photography, really the education comes from putting in the time behind the camera. So spend as little time as you can learning and spend as much time as you can doing. But since obviously learning, you're probably going to have more access to in your time gaps, then just utilize that time as much as you can. Okay, number 6 is learn to delegate tasks, or think of how you can speed up other tasks. So for the past probably 6 months or so, we started doing grocery pickup at our local store. So there's an app that we can download. We go online. We order all of our food, like all the groceries that we're going to eat that week, through this app. And then through this app, they put all the groceries together. The people at the store, they go ahead, put everything in a cart, bag it up for us. And then when we arrive to the store, we just call a number. They come out to the car, then they load it in the car. Fantastic. And then we leave. Like, we're done. We're good. We're done grocery shopping. And it has saved us not only a good amount of money from only buying what we need, because we're not, walking through every aisle thinking, ooh, macadamia nut brownies, that sounds delicious, when we shouldn't be eating macadamia nut brownies. But it also saves more than an hour every single week from actual shopping. And you may be thinking, how the hell do you spend an hour at the grocery store shopping? And the answer is children. That's simply it. It's children. They want to look at things. They're always walking around, and it just takes time. So that right there, by doing online pickup, saves us 52 hours per year. That's an extra, 2.5 days. That is fantastic right there. Fantastic. So now that's one area of your life where you could delegate tasks, right? Because I find that it is, once you come up with a meal plan, it's much easier to just shop for the ingredients in the app. It might take, 12 minutes to do a week's worth of grocery shopping for us. And then while we're already out, we just stop and pick up groceries. So it's great. So we figured out how to delegate that task for us. And then the next thing is how to speed up other tasks. And I found that, making meals is a huge, it takes up a lot of time. And I understand, because, we got to eat. We're humans, we want to eat good food. We got to spend time to make good food. Otherwise, we would all just be eating microwave dinners, 3 meals a day, every single day. That's not good. That's not healthy. So I found that meal prepping has also saved us a good amount of time. This has sped up another task that we do, because we know that we're going to have to eat every single day, multiple times a day. And that time, from thinking to yourself, what is it that I want to eat? Let me go and see what we have, and then trying to Frankenstein something together, and then, cooking it, and then putting it on the plate. Obviously, you got to eat it, and then cleaning it all up can take a good amount of time. Honestly, more than an hour a day just in cooking. So what we decided to do is just to meal prep all of our lunches and dinners the Sunday before the week starts. Now, it takes about 3 hours. It does take, a good amount of time. But 3 hours on a Sunday, and you get all of your food ready for the entire week, as opposed to every day, deciding what to eat, seeing if you have anything, cooking, and then cleaning it all up. It's been a real time saver. That's 4 extra hours per week that you can spend, now at, dinner time. You have something that you can just throw in the oven, and then when it's done, you eat it while you're waiting for it to cook. There's a time gap. There's where you can learn. There's where you can go in your backyard and do. There's where you can practice, If you're not stuck, in front of the stove or whatever, cooking a meal, then you have that time to take your camera and, you don't have to create massive photo shoots. Just go out into your backyard. I think that a backyard is a great place to learn photography. So now you have that time to do that. Okay. We have made it to number 7 in this 7-step series. So let's go ahead and recap real quick what we have learned. Number 1, get set up. Find out, make a decision on what it is that you want to learn and how you want to learn, and then be prepared so that when these time gaps arise, you can take advantage of them. Stop doing something else. I shared that I spent almost 5 hours in the past 7 days on Facebook. I know that I can stop doing a lot of that, and I can cut that down a considerable amount. And then that frees me up to do more things in photography. Number 3 is don't overwhelm yourself. Pick a topic, stick to it, quote unquote learn photography is not a goal. Something like learn how to use aperture is a better goal. Number 4, pre-plan. Get ready for your shoot so that when the time comes, you're not wasting time and wishing that you could have done it differently or better. Number 5, give yourself a time limit. If you cut down the amount of time that you can learn per day, you are going to maximize that time. You're really going to take that time seriously. And then when you do that, when you take in less information, you have more brain capacity to be able to expand on those ideas and let them ferment, as I say. Number 6 is delegate tasks, or think of ways that you can speed up other tasks that you do every single day. That's where I shared, using grocery pickup, which is free, by the way. And that's crazy to me. It's free. So awesome. It's one of the best. And then speed up other tasks is meal prepping throughout the week, and those things save a lot of time. So now we have, let's just assume that we have saved ourselves 2 hours in a week, and now we have a 2-hour block of time, and that's the dream, right? Just like, whoa, what am I going to do with this time? No, you don't want to say, whoa, what am I going to do with this time? Hopefully you have pre-planned and you know exactly what you want to do with that time. But one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people have to go through, and myself included, but I really wasn't aware of this until my wife made it, very clear, is that you need to eliminate guilt. And guilt is a mindset. Guilt, while all these tips will help you grow, you do need to spend time behind the camera. I've said that. You just simply can't learn photography without spending time behind the camera. So, but again, I understand that guilty feeling of like, well, I've been gone all day. How can I spend more time away from the family just to do just to take some pretty pictures? But I really think that, sitting down and telling your spouse or your partner how important it is for you to learn photography, from having a creative outlet or more, to build the foundations of a business. Try to make a realistic time to shoot. I just said that you have this 2-hour chunk. Let's just use 1 hour. Maximize that time and schedule it immediately following work. Or even before work, maybe you want to get that sunrise shot. But if you do it, on your way to work or on your way home from work, then that reduces the amount of time away from your family. And I know this, my wife has told me before that sometimes, she won't go to a yoga class or dinner with friends because she feels guilty that I'm home with the kids all day, and then she comes home and then just leaves, And while I appreciate her for thinking of me, it is also so important to focus on yourself, which has been the main theme of the podcast this year. So at some point you do have to work on eliminating that guilt that you have, because that is the only way that you can grow. And if you can't get out and put time in behind the camera, how far do you think you can really go? How you can, doctors could watch every single, not lab, like procedure. They can watch every single procedure on video multiple times, but it's not until you actually do the thing that you feel like you've learned it and that you've grasped how it works. And photography is exactly the same. So if you have kids at home, if you work a full-time job, don't, cut everything out just to pursue photography. What we're talking about here is, imagine if you had an extra hour per week to go out and photograph. An hour to go out and, go to a state park, or photograph the kids, or go downtown and practice street photography, or set up a shoot with a friend or somebody who's willing to be in front of the camera. Imagine what that would do for you. 1 hour every single week. And I personally can cut out an hour just from being on, Facebook. I could do that easily. And then no other time is taken away. I didn't have to do anything else. it's possible. It may be hard, but it's possible. And again, if something is really important to you, there is some level of sacrifice that has to be made in order to accomplish that. And I really think that if you tried hard, you could find that 1 hour per week to actually go out and shoot without interrupting almost any other area of your life. And when you do that, you're going to feel more fulfilled. You're going to be happier. You're going to obviously accelerate your learning. You're going to become a better photographer. Like, that's the path to be able to do that. So there you go. And again, oh yeah, I was gonna wrap that up with that it can be temporary, you know, if you because you just need that certain level of competency before you can just maintain the skill and the knowledge. Whew, okay, so that is it. Those are my 7 tips to gain more time in your life and use it to practice and learn photography. Again, I know that this is not easy, but it can be done, I promise you. So that is it for this week. I want you, for real, this week, I want you to get out. I want you to shoot. I want you to be safe. And most of all, I want you to focus on yourself. All right, until next week, I love you all.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a review in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. And continue the conversation with Raymond and other listeners of the podcast by joining the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group today. Thank you. We'll see you again next week.